Destiny 2 Shadowkeep sees Guardians returning to the moon in force in this October 2019 PC and console expansion, with series character Eris returning as one of the main focuses of the story. Shadowkeep brings new gear, new modes, and a new raid to the table for players to enjoy, while also allowing for new adventures to be had in this revamped Destiny 1 location. However, while the new areas on the moon are all well and good, Shadowkeep has very little new content regarding the story, especially when compared to the series' recent expansion, Forsaken, which added 2 locations and a multitude of new characters, both friendly and not. Shadowkeep's story begins with players investigating new activity from the Hidden Swarm faction of the Hive, with assistance from the Last City involving much fanfare and explosions that would make any pyromaniac ecstatic. The later half of the first mission takes a much darker turn when the Guardians uncover the dark force that energized the Hive so much. The Nightmares of the Darkness, familiar faces that have haunted Guardians over the past few years of Destiny 2's existence, along with other fallen bosses from Destiny 1 such as Gaul, Skolos, the Fanatic, and more. The player is pulled from a suicidal fight by Eris Morn, who tasks the Guardian with securing new gear that will allow for them to slay the Nightmares and infiltrate their source. After slaying each Nightmare one by one, the Guardian makes it through the area they had first encountered the Nightmares in order to discover their source. Battling through the most powerful of the Nightmares in arenas that take influence from their past, the Guardian is confronted with a dark vision of themselves in a place familiar to many Destiny 1 veterans, the Black Garden, known to many as the birthplace of the mechanical monstrosities known as the Vex. This knowledge helps propel the Guardians into the new raid, Garden of Salvation, where both new and old mechanics make an appearance. Teamwork and communication are essential to this activity, as Guardians have to use the new tether mechanics and buffs alongside the familiar Gambit moat mechanic in order to continue the raid and enable damage phases against bosses.
Outer! Nice work, let him go by first.
Completions of each encounter deliver powerful raid-exclusive gear that are envied by many. A new feature added to the game is Nightfall the Ordeal, which allows for matchmaking on pinnacle activity at different power levels. Guardians are paired with 2 others on the more powerful versions of new and existing strikes that allow for potential loot and enhancement materials, the latter of which plays heavily into the new Armor 2.0 system. In addition to the new raid, weapons, and story, Shadowkeep provides a revamped armor system. Discarding the past system of RNG-empowered random rolls, Armor 2.0 allows for players to customize perks and abilities each armor piece gives and touches up on cosmetics by changing previously cosmetic Eververse-exclusive armor with random rolls to armor ornaments to allow for more aesthetic customization. New mods are earned via pinnacle activities such as Iron Banner, Garden of Salvation, and Nightfall completions. While Shadowkeep does provide new and terrifying story details to Eris' story, the game itself has very little new content players haven't seen before. While the return to the moon was a nice addition to the game, players found that much of the area was recycled and reused assets from the first game, with a new graphics update and a few new areas added. Enemies suffered much the same in the sense that the Nightmares were just previous enemies who had been reskinned with a red aura to add to the idea that they were just apparitions of Guardians' trauma. While the story did introduce a new potential enemy through the dark power beneath the moon's surface, it feels as if Bungie has done very little to encourage its development, with the game almost ignoring it in favor of jumping straight into Season of Undying, where the Vex are the focus of the story. This method does leave a story thread open to expansion in the future, but Destiny is a franchise already bloated with unfinished story threads. Past enemies appear for brief moments with little to no resolution that leads to players feeling unsatisfied with the ending of the story. Regarding Armor 2.0, there are a few problems that have already made themselves known. Players have been falling into armor builds that they are comfortable with, which has only encouraged stagnation and a reluctance to try any new armor or builds that each coming season provides. Outstanding stat rolls on some armor did revitalize that section, but for the most part, armor stayed the way it was with some minor upgrades each season. On the topic of the raid, there is very little to criticize. While the Gambit-style moat mechanic seems tedious and a source of irritation, the raid manages to make it so that players never really feel overwhelmed by the duty to retrieve the moats outside of triggering a damage phase. However, the fact that Garden of Salvation is the lone raid that's the source of gear going beyond the seasonal soft cap has ruffled more than one Guardian's feathers, as is the weekly time gate to earning more of that loot. Destiny 2 Shadowkeep is a solid addition to the franchise with new content and mechanics abound, if one disregards the lack of new enemy and locational content that aren't simple reskins of past game assets. Bungie will have to work hard to maintain the growing base of Guardians joining because of this nugget of content. Destiny 2 Shadowkeep is a decent score, which can be put in with a solid grade of 8 out of 10, with future new content hinting at even more exciting adventures.